Warning, this episode has explicit material regarding suicide. Please, if you have any kids in the car below the age of 13, please listen to this episode at another time. But it is a sensitive topic. So please, anyone under 13 in your car or in your vicinity, please have this episode listened to at a later time. Thank you. I know of someone who had suicidal thoughts, and I am happy to say that today they are mentally, physically, and spiritually well. They were able to get out of the darkness and see the light, and that person is me. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Rosie Resilient Reset Life. And today I will discuss the myths, the warning signs, and the steps to help someone with suicidal thoughts. But first, we all remember Robin Williams, and there is now a documentary on his life. And I remember when I heard that he committed suicide, I was very hurt because of the fact of him being the funny guy. And I did not expect that. I did not watch the documentary, but I read an article that said the reason why he committed suicide was because of him being diagnosed with dementia 6 months prior. I will get more into that later. I would like to discuss the myths of suicide. One includes asking the question, are you thinking about killing yourself? That will lead them to commit suicide. That is a myth. Another myth is people who talk about suicide won't do it. That is another myth. And you have to be mentally ill to think about suicide. That is a myth. For me, my story is I do not have a mental illness history. Prior to myself having suicidal thoughts, it was in 2020. In 2019, I was laid off as a physician associate. And at first, I was okay, but the months of me still being unemployed took an effect on me, in which I lost my identity in the sense of I felt if I was not a physician associate, then I don't know who else to be. I placed so much of my identity as a physician associate. I felt empty and hopeless. I did get a job finally in March, but then, as you well know, March 2020 was COVID, and then I got furloughed. And then I went right back into the rabbit hole, and then it got darker and darker, where the depression led to despair. And I just kept having thoughts of wanting to end my life because I did not want to be here anymore. I felt if I could not do the one thing that I've been doing for 18 years, then there's no reason for me to be here. Sometimes I will drive and think, oh, wow, this tree right there, that'll be a great way to end my life. Then this quick thought will come in and say no, and then I'll keep driving straight. There's a difference between having suicidal thoughts and then having suicidal ideas. That's the next step to having thoughts. I was not playing around when I had suicidal thoughts. I did not disclose that information until right after I had that thought when I was driving, that I called a friend of mine. She came over right away when I told her that I'm having dark thoughts. And thank God she listened, which is something I will go into later on the steps to do when someone tells you that they are having suicidal thoughts. As a physician associate who works at a jail, I came across a lot of people who had suicidal thoughts. And of course, the thing is, as I said, one of the myths is they talk about it. It doesn't mean they'll do it. But with all suicidal thoughts. The second someone says, I want to kill myself, we have to take them seriously, not as just healthcare professionals, but as human beings. Some people who joke around about it is actually them crying out to help them. And they're scared to tell you the truth, hence why they put it as a joke. If they say it seriously, then you will judge them. And I know for me and many people who have thought of suicide, we don't want to be judged. And there's a statistic that says 1 out of 5 people have had a suicidal thought in their life. So that means if you count 5 people in a room, one of them have had a suicidal thought. So it's more prevalent than we think. So do not discount a person who has a thought or who jokes about it, because it's maybe their way of wanting to talk to you about something, but they just don't know how to express themselves. If you know of anyone who is going through this right now, please go onto SAVE, which is SAVE.org, for more information, or the suicide helpline. There are many signs to look for that you may or may not know they are contemplating suicide. I'm giving the 5, but there's many others, because these 5 are ones that you may not look at, but it's imperative that you put it to your attention. One is withdrawing from family and friends. That's one thing I did. I withdrew from friends. I didn't speak to many people except the one lady that I mentioned. With family, I kept my routine. It was my way to still be quote unquote normal. The second thing to look for is when someone is feeling unbearable emotional or physical pain. So, for me, for example, I was laid off and then furloughed. So, anyone who's going through a job loss, just check on them, make sure they're fine. Anyone who's had a new diagnosis of a physical pain, check on them, especially if they've been very active and all of a sudden they're having this pain where pain medication is not helping. They just feel lost. Third is giving away important possessions, putting affairs in order, like making a will. Fourth is talking about feeling empty and hopeless and having no reason to live. As I expressed earlier, that was one of my warning signs, that I just talked about feeling like I had no reason to live. The last is extreme mood swings. One minute the person is sad, and the next minute they're either calm or happy. I went through that as well. Like one day I'll be fine, and then the next day a thought will come in and I'll get very sad and depressed. Watch out for these main ones, but there's many more in a person who's contemplating suicide. It's important to ask these 5 questions. One is to bluntly ask them, are you thinking about killing yourself? As I mentioned earlier, one of the myths is that if you ask them that question, that will lead them to commit suicide. That is false, because you asking them will have them feel seen. They will tell you. So please bluntly ask them, prepare yourself for the answer, and do not judge them or laugh or do anything of such nature, because once you do, you lost them, and that's not good. I am a Black Haitian American woman healthcare professional, and I had suicidal thoughts. Many people do not think Black people have suicidal thoughts. Many people think women do not have suicidal thoughts. And many people think healthcare professionals do not think of suicide. Yet, Black or African Americans are have an increased risk of committing suicide. Women are also at an increased risk of committing suicide, and healthcare professionals are at an increased risk of committing suicide. Number 2, make sure you ask them, hey, do you have anything you could use to commit suicide? Do you have a gun? Do you have a lot of pills? Do you have a lot of alcohol? What is in your environment that you can use to commit suicide? Because many people either have a new access to it or they're in the environment in which they can easily assess it. The third step to help someone with suicidal thoughts is to listen to them attentively and acknowledge their feelings. The one thing I was glad that I called my friend because usually she's the talker. And it was nice that she finally listened and acknowledged my feelings. She didn't tell me not to have them. She did not tell me pleasantries that people say, God's going to help you and this is this. Like, I know God's going to help me, but right now, I just needed someone to hear me and to hear my tears. And many people who are depressed and despair and or have suicidal thoughts, all they want is someone to listen to them and not talk. Listen and not judge. Listen and be present. It's important if you are not able to do such, then lead them once again to a suicide hotline or helpline in which they will be able to have someone to listen to them attentively. Which leads to my fourth step to help someone with suicide is connect them with someone that could help them with these suicidal thoughts or ideas. And then number five step is to follow up with them once they get care. Do not leave them on their own. Many people think, okay, you got your help, so you should feel better now. Not necessarily, because if the situation hasn't changed, the idea will only come back. So it's important that they have a good support system in order for them not to have that suicidal thought again. The main takeaways, as this is September Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month, is to know that 1 in 5 people have suicidal thoughts. Anyone who is currently having suicidal thoughts, please use a helpline. Remember, everything that you're going through is only temporary. Taking your life is something permanent. And I know that from speaking personally to you, as much as the situation right now feels hopeless and you feel like no one cares, someone cares. Use the helpline. Someone is there to listen to you. You are not alone. Be honest and say, I need help. Remember to like and comment. Please share with those that you know of who are in a dark spot or anyone that you just don't know if they're thinking this and you just want to send them this as a hey, something to listen to just in case. Thanks for listening to another episode of The Reset Life. Stay resilient.